homesteading to prepping to common horse sense, we are College Hill Farm. Welcome back to College Hill Farm. Well, it's real smoky out here today. In the county over from us, they have a lot of forest, and our county has some forest too, but not as many as over in Jackson County, and I think half the county over there is on fire. We've had very dry conditions this fall, so they are experiencing a lot of wildfires. There are a lot of wildfires in central Appalachia right now, so the firefighters have got their hands full, and I send up a little prayer for them. Now, what I'm doing today is I'm going to harvest okra seed, and while I'm harvesting it, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about food security and how to maintain food security on your homestead. So let's go over here and look at some okra. Okay, right here's my okra, and what I want to do, it will break right off if it's good and dry. I want to harvest these large pods, and but I don't want to harvest them all off of one okra plant. That's all part of seed security. You want as much genetic diversity as you can get, so I'm going to harvest it up and down this row from a whole bunch of different plants. One okra pod per plant, and I'll probably get half this bucket full. So I'm going to go down through here and start doing that. Okay, that'll be plenty for seed. So let's go over here and get in the shade, and I'll start shelling the seeds out of this. We'll talk a little bit about food security on your homestead. Okay, while I shell out my okra, the way you do it, I'm going to show you. This okra, you can just break this tip over and pull these apart. Now, right inside there, once you pull them apart, right inside here, there are ribs. See the ribs? Now, inside those ribs, it's full of seeds. So I just want to dump them here in my bucket, break them loose, get all the seeds out. That one's empty. And that's all there is to harvesting okra seed. You know, all I've got here is just a bucket, and I'm cracking these seeds into them. Now, okra is a plant that you can save seed from. I don't know of any varieties of okra that you can't save seed from. Now, hybrid plants, when it comes to seed saving, you know, you can save seeds from a hybrid tomato, but those seeds are not going to come back next year and be what you planted. As a matter of fact, I've had several hybrid tomatoes, and they've made volunteers. And what I mean by volunteers is they came up in the field where a tomato had laid and rotted and the seeds went into the dirt, and I let them grow sometimes. What happens is that those seeds revert back to some of the characteristics of another plant. I've had several of them come up and be little like Tommy toes. Grape tomatoes, however you want to say it. We called them as a kid, we always called them Tommy toes. I had a cousin named Tommy and we just called them Tommy toes. Anyway, of course, tomato, I don't know if anybody else called them Tommy toes or not, but that's what we called them. Now, when it comes to food security on your homestead and prepping and all that kind of stuff, you know me, I'm a common sense prepper. I'm not all about being the lone wolf and storing up my guns and prepared to shoot my neighbors over a tater, and you know, that's just not me. It's never going to be me. I'm a common sense kind of guy. I do what makes good sense to facilitate the production on my homestead. Now, my grandparents, both Mom's mom and Dad's mom and dad, I didn't know my grandfather on Mom's side. He was killed before I was ever born. As a matter of fact, I think Mom was 4 years old when he was killed. But anyway, they all saved their own seed. Now, if you go to the seed stores, or if you just go to Wally World down here, they will sell you seeds. Now, most of their seeds are not heirloom varieties, meaning if you save the seed from them, they're not going to come back the same way. Now, Crystal and I try to be seed secure, and that goes back to food security. Okay, we try and stay seed secure. Now, what that means is we try and grow varieties on our homestead that we can save seed from year to year. This okra is called Clemson Spineless. It was designed, of course, at Clemson University. Some okra is real hard on your little fingers. They have spines on them. But Clemson Spineless doesn't have any spines, and that's the kind of okra I've grown ever since I can remember. Paul used to grow some other okra, him and Ma, but ever since we got seed for Clemson Spineless, that's all we've ever grown. Now, we can save seeds from these Clemson Spineless because it's not really a hybrid. Okay, it's not a true cross. It was just selected over the years to get rid of that spine property. It was all the same seeds, but they selected them to get ones that just weren't that way and that they could pass the genetics on. Now, as far as genetically modified organisms, GMO, we don't grow GMOs here. I wouldn't be afraid to grow a GMO, but we just don't grow them because they don't come back true to what they are. So you can't save seed from them. And again, it's all about food security. Now, on this homestead, of course, potatoes, let's talk about potatoes. The two types of potatoes, Irish potatoes and sweet potatoes. Now, Irish potatoes keep only 1 year in the basement, in our basement. They keep 1 year. And we use those potatoes that are in the basement as our seed potatoes. Because by the end of a year, they're all sprouted out. There's plenty of sprouts and stuff. So we use them. We plant Kennebecks, blue Adirondacks, and red. This year we planted red Northland because I had lost seed of my red Pontiacs. I prefer red Pontiacs. But we plant those three varieties. of seed potatoes, potatoes. And of course, you don't plant potatoes by seeds. Yes, potatoes make seeds. Let me say that again. The flowers on potatoes make seeds. But they can cross with so many wild plants that you can't plant potatoes from seed. Okay? Now, so we plant our potatoes from what we call sets or cuts. Little pieces of potato that the eyes have sprouted out on. That's the way they grow. Sweet potatoes, on the other hand, they grow from eyes that grow out of the sweet potatoes. Now, my sweet potatoes will keep in my basement for up to 4 years. I've got some down in that basement that are 4 years old. They don't taste good to eat. They've got hard spots in them when you cook them. Once they're that old, they're real pithy. But you can still use them to grow sweet potato sets. And we grow those in sets in a bed and then transplant them into the garden. This year I tried planting sweet potatoes from cuttings like Irish potatoes, and it didn't work out too good. I don't think it was the method. I think it was just the year. So saving your sweet potatoes and saving back seed for Irish potatoes is a natural extension of just saving potatoes. So saving potatoes is very important. Potatoes, on this homestead, we average about 400 pounds of potatoes a year in the larder, and we use about 65 or 70 pounds of seed potatoes. So we're talking about 350 pounds of potatoes, or in other words, 35 10-pound bags. But now potatoes are a lot of carbs and a lot of calories. So potatoes fit in to helping you have plenty of calories on your homestead and fit in well with that food insecurity thing. We also grow another carbohydrate called corn. We grow two types of corn. The first type we use for cornmeal, and that's called Hickory King. It's a field corn that we grow, and it's an old-timey corn. It'll grow taller than your head. There's videos for all this if you go back and check them. But we grow Hickory King. My grandfather used to call it Hickory Cane, but it's Hickory King corn. That's a white field corn. Doesn't taste good to eat in comparison to the super sweet corn. We also grow a super sweet variety called candy corn. I've tried some others, Silver Queen. I like Silver Queen too. But of those super sweet corns, you can't save seed back. Let me say that again. Of the super sweet corns, you can't save seed back because they never come back and have any ears of corn on them. I've tried. I've had more luck with Silver Queen than with stuff like G90 and candy corn. Candy's my favorite. Ambrosia's pretty good, and peaches and cream are pretty good too, but candy corn's my favorite, and that's the variety that we grow. You can go back. We put up, I think 11 pints is all we put up this year because a bear came and knocked our stuff down. Again, back to that food security thing. Wildlife can be a big deterrent to allowing you to remain food secure. Also, beans. Beans are a natural substitute for meat. But they're only a natural substitute for meat if you let the beans get mature. We don't harvest our beans when they're just flabs, just the hull, with a little tiny bean in it. If the bean is not big as a dime, you don't want to harvest it. I hear the kids coming home next door. You don't want to harvest it. That's part of your food security. That's part of your protein. That's why soup beans or pinto beans saved a whole generation of kids in Appalachia. If it hadn't been for pinto beans, there'd have been all kinds of kids dying from lack of protein. My mom included, because her mom just barely made it. Anyway, they saved their beans. Now we grow 3 varieties of pole beans. Now my family grew a lot more. My brother raises a different variety of pole beans than I do. He raises a pole bean called John D. White, which is right out of Appalachia, and I don't know if that's the actual name of the bean, because the truth is, that was my grandfather's. That came from my grandfather, and he was notorious for naming something after the person he got it from. So if he had a John D. White bean, probably John D. White was the one that gave it to him, gave him the seed. So these old timers, they swap seed all the time because they had a community. Okay? Ain't no lone wolf's gonna make it. These lone wolf preppers, they're just dangerous and ain't gonna help you. Stay away from them. Anyway, it takes a community to get everything going. I don't care what you think. Community is the #1 thing that you can rely on. If your taters didn't make it this year, your neighbor might say, well, I had a pretty good tater harvest. You can have some of mine. Okay? Community. Those old timers in Appalachia, they depended on one another. You know, I remember Paul talking about letting Jeff Turner hunt on the halves. Paul supplied the gun and the ammunition, and Jeff Turner went hunting because Paul worked every day in a coal mine. He couldn't go hunting. So, and by the time he did his garden and took care of his animals, and okay, so he was a busy fella. So he wanted wild game, which I love wild game. Put about 80 pounds of deer in the freezer just the other night. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, food security. Now we grow 3 varieties of pole beans. We grow a greasy bean, that's a white greasy. We grow a brown greasy, which we call a speckled greasy. And then we grow a bean called white half runner, which is a white bean, but it's an heirloom variety of white half runner. It's not the same white half runner you could buy today. It's a more tender bean. Half runners have been modified over the years so that they can be transported and sold in grocery stores and stuff. So it's not the same half runner that they had back in the 40s and 50s. But I still have seed from family. Now, I thought I lost it the other year, but I found the bag, so I hadn't lost them at all, and I managed to get some seed back for it. Now, then we raised another pole bean called a cranberry bean, and it's an old native fall bean. So we have four different pole bean varieties that we raise to help put food security in there. One of those varieties might not come up good this year. Well, guess what? We can rely on a different variety for this year and just take the ones that didn't come up good and get seed back and save our seed back. That's all about food security. Okay? We also grow a bean that's called a 6-week bean. And it's my favorite bean of all of them. It's what I make shuck beans out of, dried beans. And I save back plenty of seed from that every year. Now, on our website or on our Facebook page, you can look up College Hill Farm on Facebook, and we're right there. And if you'll go to our picture section, it shows you how long you can save seed without putting them in the freezer. You can put your seed in the freezer and they'll be fine. Okay? They'll last longer too. But I found I like to keep my seed and rotate it every 4 or 5 years, depending on what it is. Okra, for example. Okra seed, this okra seed will have about a 90% germination rate. Next year, it'll be about a 90% germination rate. The year after that, it'll only have about a 50% germination rate. The year after that, it'll only have about a 25% germination rate. And the year after that, probably won't none of it come up once it's 3 years old. Okay? So, you've got to know how long you can keep your seed. Now, on our website or on our Facebook page, we have a photograph that shows seed viability. You can just click on the photos on the Facebook page and go down through there. You'll see things like a nitrogen page where it tells you how much fertilizer to apply. You'll also see a thing about seed viability. And that seed viability chart will tell you how long you can keep seed from things. Now, we save seed from our broccoli. We save seed from our lettuces. We save seed from turnips. We save seed from, well, I'm going to save seed from radishes. I've never saved radish seed before, but I'm going to save seed from radishes. So those provide us with some food security. Those things that we can save seed from ourselves. Now, almost all bean seed you can save. Okay? Beans pollinate before they ever open their flower. Okay? About the only way you can cross-pollinate is inject pollen from outside into the flower. So beans and peas pollinate without having to do anything. So almost all bean varieties come back true to what they are. Tomatoes are a lot the same way. I plant my tomatoes a little farther apart because bees do get on the tomatoes and they can transfer pollen. But generally I've found that the tomatoes, you can save seed from tomatoes without too much cross-contamination. You do it like we did the okra. You get several tomatoes and mix it all together, and then your chances of getting the odd seed are really, really reduced. Now, we plant our basic stuff. Then we plant some hybrid stuff. I buy wilt-resistant Roma tomatoes. Roma tomatoes are real bad to take the blight or to do wilt, to have wilt. So I try my best to take and keep that down. So I buy Fusarium and Mosaic wilt-resistant varieties of Roma tomatoes. So I buy Roma tomato seeds. It's about $1. But when I've saved seed from these to try to get them to come back, they always come back as little small tomatoes. They don't work that way. We buy a little tomato called a Sun Sugar by Bonnie Plants. It's a little yellow Tommy toe. I love those things. It's like going out like a cow grazing when I go out to eat them. So we buy that. We also buy candy corn seed. But when I buy 2 years at a time. I don't buy 1 year at a time. But now candy corn seed was real expensive this year. It was like $15 or $16 a pound. So, or maybe it was $15 or $16 a half pound. It was stupid expensive this year. It's the most expensive I've seen it. So we buy candy corn. We save most of our other seeds. I like to we save our own bell pepper seeds, our own peppers. We plant a California bell pepper, a green one. We've got a yellow bell pepper, and all I do is I just call them yellow bell peppers and green bell peppers, and We've got one bell pepper. We got one pepper called a gypsy. We plant those. We plant jalapenos, and we plant cayenne peppers. But we don't plant a whole lot of them, and we make pepper flakes out of the cayenne peppers. But man, you got to do that outside. Don't ever go and take a dried pepper and try and make pepper flakes inside. I promise you, it's like being gassed by pepper spray. So, when it comes to food security, in reality, plants that you can't save seed from do not add to your food security. Okay? As a prepper that's planning on gardening as their thing, if everything goes to pieces, you cannot count on hybrid seed. You have to have heirloom seed, or else you're wasting your time. Now I'm about to get down to the end of these. About to get down to the end of this talk too. So, one thing that you have to do, have to, if you want to be food secure, and you're a prepper, you can buy a 25-pound jug of food. Crystal and I have 4 freezers. I'm working to get solar hooked up to them. I've got a generator that I can turn on if something happens. But we've got 4 freezers. And of course, you can can stuff out of the freezer too if something happens. You can on an open fire. We've got propane. We can with propane too. But anyway, we've got 4 freezers. We can stuff. We do all kinds of things. But we still buy food at the grocery store. Not nearly as much as other people buy. But we still buy food occasionally. You know, I haven't learned how to keep cabbage all winter. I also haven't learned how to save seeds from cabbage. I'm sure it involves allowing the cabbage to grow into the second year. I'm pretty certain that that's part of it. But I have never grown cabbage seed. I've never grown cauliflower seed, so I have to buy cabbage and cauliflower seed. Get these sticks out of here. So, are you going to be 100% food secure? Well, if you buy a box with a 25-year food in it, break one of those things open and eat it for a month. And tell me if that's what you want to do. I don't know if I want to live if I have to eat that crap. Most of that stuff is unpalatable. So, think about how you want to go. This farming and homesteading and doing that kind of stuff, it's not a lock-in. Okay? It's not something that you can just decide I'm going to do today and do it. You have to plan. You have to have the failures. I've been homesteading for 58 years, gardening and raising pigs, and 58 years. And I still have a failure every now and then. Well, 59 years, that's how old I am, but really 51 years because I was 8 when I started helping. So, you got to plan for this stuff. You got to learn what works and what doesn't work. If you're under the gun to learn what works, you might not want to bet your life on it. Now, do I think that society is going to break down to the point that everything's going to go to pieces? Electricity, if the electrical grid goes down, everybody's going to be destroyed. There'll be no more food. There'll be no more. If the electric grid goes down, they didn't have electricity in 1908 in Appalachia. Okay, when they discovered coal big time and started mining coal big time, there was no electricity in Appalachia. Those folks were doing just fine. Okay? They were doing just fine. So if you think that the grid going down or something, I hear my neighbor starting his motorcycle up. You think the grid going down or gasoline running out, the end of gas, or all that stuff is what you're prepping for? Because society's going to collapse. You might ought to rethink that. Society was going on long before we had electricity, long before we had automobiles. Folks today may not fare as well without that stuff, but they'll get back to figuring it out. Okay? They'll get back to figuring it out. So, how am I trying to say this? Prep for those common, everyday things that can happen. Put up enough food to last you a year. What if you lost your job? What if you lost your income? My place is paid for. As long as I don't have to, as long as I can pay the taxes, and nobody owns nothing, because you've got to pay property taxes. Okay? Think about that one too. You really don't own nothing, because if you don't pay your property taxes, they'll come take your place. In America, nobody owns nothing. In reality. Because if you don't pay the taxes on it, they'll come and get it. Now, what happens if you lose your job? What happens if you get injured and can't work, and your income is cut down so much that you can't do stuff? You can't afford anything other than to pay your rent. Okay? But if you've got enough food stored up, or you've got enough supplies stored up for 6 months or whatever, then you can make it. That's what prepping's all about. It's not the end of the world scenarios. You know, if there's an atomic exchange, I'm a physicist. I know what the world will be like after that. I hope it hits me on the head. I'm a physicist. I've known for a long time what nuclear bombs do. And let me tell you, I'd rather be hit on the head by it than have to go through the nuclear winter that's going to follow. So, don't put all your eggs in this society's going to collapse, EMP is going to destroy the world, asteroid impact, nuclear war. If you're worrying and prepping for that, then you're probably worrying yourself into an early grave. But prepping for the common everyday things, loss of a job, an injury, loss of an income, death of a spouse, okay, those are all preppable things that you can be prepared for. Okay? You can be prepared for those things. Look, if the asteroid that took out the dinosaurs hits, humankind would probably survive. I think 75,000 years ago we had a pretty good bottleneck, and only 5,000 human individuals survived. Back then there were probably a million humans on the planet, and only 5,000 survived. That could have been, don't know what that bottleneck was from, but genetically we know that there was a bottleneck. So look at your surroundings and look at reality. Some things you just wouldn't want to survive. Some people are going to get the lottery and be in a place where they can survive that stuff. If you're not in a place where you can survive it, you might survive a little while, but you're going to succumb to pestilence. That's the way that works in these dangerous scenarios. Pestilence kills more people than the actual scenario. You know, it causes you to get sick and then gone. So I've got my stuff done. Now all I'm going to do is take this, a bag, there is plenty of okra seed for next year. And then once you get your bag, suck the air out of it. I'm going to take my marker, Okra 2022, and I'll take this and put it in the basement. In my tote. I've got a tote. That's another thing. Rodents can affect your food stability, your food security. Keep all of your seed in a sealed tote to keep the rodents out. One mouse that you don't know is in your seed could ruin you for a year. So keep your seed in a tote. Now, if you like this stuff, this homesteading, do-it-yourself kind of thing, be certain to come on out to the channel and subscribe. We do this homesteading and philosophizing all the time. If you hit the little bell when you come to the channel, it'll notify you when we upload a video. We upload every Sunday. Now, with that being said, time for me to get on to the next thing, and hopefully we're getting ready to get some rain, put some of those wildfires out.